Good morning, everybody. It's Friday, May 14th, and I'm here for my weekly reach out to you, Fridays with Father. I hope your week is going well for you. I've just come back from a couple of days away to meet a friend of mine, a Welsh friend of mine, and he's a Jesuit. In fact, he's the only real Welsh person I know in this country. So we don't get to see each other very often. But when I do, it's really nice to connect. So I spent a couple of days with him and chatting and just having a bit of a relaxation time. So I'm feeling pretty good. But it just reminds me really that it's important for us to get away. You know, even if it's just for a day or two, to remove ourselves from a situation gives us a sense of perspective and it enables us to recharge, you know. So I've done that and I'll be ready for the weekend, this coming weekend. So yeah, today's the 14th of May, and then while I was away, another Welsh friend of mine kind of messaged me from over there, and she wished me a happy Ascension Day, and I sort of sent a message back, sort of saying, in Wales you're ahead of us. We don't celebrate the Ascension here in America until Sunday, till Sunday. And I said, so you've ascended before we've ascended. And so it just reminded me, really, I suppose, just to point out that we don't all in the Catholic Church celebrate the feast days at the same time. There is kind of a variance depending on where you are really in the world. Now, here in this country, for many years, the Ascension was celebrated on Thursday, which is traditionally the time when the Ascension is celebrated, and it was one of the holy days of obligation in which we were, as Catholics, were expected to attend. And the Thursday of the week before the 7th Sunday of Easter. And then in 1992 here, the bishops of the United States decided to transfer that feast day of the Ascension of the Lord permanently to a Sunday slot, to the 7th Sunday of Easter. So since the 1990s anyway, we have had the Feast of the Ascension on a Sunday. And I suppose you might ask yourself, well, why? You know, why on the Sunday and not on the Thursday, you know? And I suppose the fact of the matter is, you know, that the Church has to consider, you know, the pastoral circumstances of our life. And I suppose the world has changed, and everybody in some ways seem to work a lot more than they used to, have less free time available, and I guess they must have noticed at some stage that attendance of the Feast of the Ascension on a Thursday, or holy days of obligation in general, had kind of gone down a bit. And so in order to enable people to, you know, celebrate that feast, it was moved permanently to a Sunday, which makes perfect sense. But I also get the idea of making it special by putting it on a Thursday. And in some parts of the world, they still have it on a Thursday, like in Wales. So my friend let me know that it was Ascension Thursday, but we've got Ascension Sunday coming up this coming week, you know, and that's all good. I think the important thing is that we celebrate it in some way. But also, I suppose, to recognise that we think that wherever we go in the world, everything is the same in terms of the Catholic Church. But there are some regional variations, and that's okay too. I wanted to say to you today, you know, that today itself, the 14th of May, is a feast day. And it's the feast of Saint Matthias. Saint Matthias is one of the apostles, one of the 12 apostles. And so therefore the colour for today at Mass will be red. And I just wanted to mention Saint Matthias to you because he was the apostle who was chosen to replace Judas Iscariot after his suicide. So, but what's interesting about Saint Matthias is that he wasn't chosen to be a disciple, to be an apostle, until Jesus had ascended to heaven. So he was chosen by the other apostles just before before Pentecost and just after Ascension. So that's why the church chose to put his feast day today, the Friday after the Ascension, because historically that's when Matthias was chosen to be an apostle. I suppose you might ask yourself, well, what do we know about Saint Matthias? And to be honest, there's not a lot known historically about him. He was chosen to be an apostle, and it was said, that he, I think, did a lot of evangelizing in the area of Turkey around there and Greece in the early years of the church. And then also, I think it was said that he was responsible for evangelizing a colony of cannibals in Ethiopia. Yeah, so he's apparently known for that too. But apart from that, we don't really know much more about him. And you might think to yourself, well, that's a pity. We don't know much about him, do we? But I think there's something kind of interesting in the fact that, we don't know much about the person. And I think it kind of helps us in some ways to sort of, maybe put ourselves there, as an apostle. He wasn't one of the famous ones, was he really? But you could probably replace that name Matthias and put, Jonah or, or Peter or Mary or whoever your name is. Put yourselves there in a reflective kind of way and see yourself as an apostle, which I think we need to see ourselves more as an apostle, chosen, in other words, to do God's will and to bring Christ to the world in the same way he was. And, he may have not had a very, sort of famous lifestyle, but he did accept the calling to be an apostle in the same way that we are all called to accept that calling to be apostles for Christ in the world. And you might ask yourself, really, what did he do? What did he do that was holy? Where was the holiness in Saint Matthias's life? Because we don't have the specific details. But when I reflect about that, I think to myself, I think the holiness of the life of Matthias was that he accepted that relationship with God, that he saw in some ways that by accepting the relationship with God, that was a very holy act in and of itself, because, holiness is something that we don't achieve. It's not something that we can make or fabricate or generate of ourselves. It comes from God himself, comes from Jesus himself. And holiness in our lives comes to the extent that we accept the relationship that we're invited to be a part of with Jesus right now, And the holiness of the apostles, all of the apostles, was not by their heroic actions, but their acceptance of the relationship, the invitation to be in relationship with God. There's the holiness, because it all comes through God and through that relationship. So I offer you that today as like just a small reflection on our own holiness, in the light of the feast day of Saint Matthias, just the very fact that you accept, to be in relationship with God, and you do that daily through your prayer efforts, brings a certain holiness itself, that holiness is a gift, that it comes from grace, and it's not something that we make ourselves. So we honor Saint Matthias for that reason, if nothing else. He accepted the role of being an apostle of Jesus. And in the same, we are invited today to accept that role of being an apostle of Jesus. And through that, God may choose, if he chooses to do so, to do great things in our lives, in small ways and in big ways. So that's Saint Matthias today, apostle, replacement for Judas Iscariot, and it's his feast day. I just wanted to mention also that yesterday was another feast day, or at least an optional feast, but for some people it's quite important, so I wanted to mention that yesterday was Our Lady of Fatima. Some people have a devotion to Our Lady of Fatima. I know that here this week a group of people came to pray a special rosary. I think members of our Filipino parishioners came to pray a rosary in honor of Our Lady of Fatima, and that's a nice feast. I've not been to Fatima. I'd like to go, and I don't have a huge devotion to Our Lady of Fatima, but I have devotion to our Blessed Mother, so it's the same thing. But what I was going to say about Our Lady of Fatima is, if you haven't seen it already, there's a new movie, a new film, and it's on Netflix, and it's called Fatima. And it's really worth a look. It's very well produced, it's nicely acted, and it's not too pious or cheesy. It really is quite a poignant look at the appearances of our Blessed Mother to those three children, and the whole story is there for you. And the acting is great, and with some fairly well-known actors involved. And I think the thing that strikes me about that film, and thinking about the Fatima apparitions rather, is the following. What you see in the film is the resistance to people believing those young children, the opposition that people had to believing that Mary was really appearing there, the hardness of heart that was there, the doubting, and that came from the church officials, the bishops, very kind of like cynical attitudes, and the people in general. At first they all thought he was exciting, and then became skeptical. They were looking for signs and wonders, and it's kind of a whole kind of like parable of learning for each one of us. As you see, like three young children, displaying great faith in the face of adversity, and that part of our lives in following Jesus will always have a certain opposition from other people. There will be people who maybe laugh at us, think we're silly for persevering in our faith, think that we are deranged for being a part of the church in spite of its many foibles and sins. But when you see films like that about Our Lady of Fatima and the apparitions, then it kind of inspires you really to hold firm, really, to the faith to be true in your heart. It's easy just to let go and just to go with the tide, and but people like who are the children involved in the apparitions at Fatima kind of remind us really that we are all weak, but if we hold on, we'll be okay. So I just recommend. There's millions of things to watch on Netflix, but I do especially recommend the film called Fatima, because you may or may not know much about the story, but it has it all there for you, and it's in Technicolor, and it's well worth a watch. So for yesterday, the Feast of Our Lady of Fatima, I recommend that you watch the film, which is on Netflix. Okay, that was the other thing I was going to say to you today. I think finally the thing I wanted to mention today is that we are fast approaching the Feast of Pentecost, when the Holy Spirit came down upon the apostles and our Blessed Mother, and the church was founded, you know, really, with the Holy Spirit, and we all received gifts through the Spirit. And especially it's an important day for us here at the Church of the Holy Spirit, because it's like our feast day, you know. It's not just the feast day of the whole universal church, but it's our special feast day here at Church of the Holy Spirit. So we don't have any huge special plans this year for the feast day, except, but most importantly, the celebration of Mass, as usual, and we'll be celebrating with style, I hope, as best we can. But as I talk about style, so I want to bring to your attention the little kind of like token thing that we are doing in honor of our feast day is that we are selling red masks, red facial coverings, because the color of the Holy Spirit is red, and we have them on sale here in the parish office, and after every Mass this coming weekend for the reasonable price of $10 a piece, and you will be supporting your parish if you got one. We've already had black ones, we've had blue ones, we've had white ones, we've had Mary ones, we've had purple ones for Lent, and now we're going for red ones for the Feast of Pentecost, which is a week this coming Sunday. So this Sunday is Ascension Sunday, and then the following Sunday is the Feast of Pentecost, okay? So if you don't have your mask, make sure you get one. In the meantime, I will sign off now because I need to go and get myself ready for the weekend. But before I finish, I was just going to say to you that it's Ascension Sunday, you know, and it's one of those feasts that I really don't like to preach about because I find it really difficult. So I ask you please to be very gentle with me and not too overly critical about my preaching this weekend. It's always been, I've always struggled sometimes with these feast days when there is a tendency or a temptation to try to explain it all. And the thing is, I don't have an explanation for it all. And so I kind of get a bit stumped about what to say. So I'm trying to sort of look at it in a different way, really. But preaching is not an easy thing, and I do struggle, and I will struggle especially trying to put a few words together for this coming weekend for the Feast of the Ascension. The Ascension is a part of the Paschal Mystery. It's like the final step, if you like, in the Paschal Mystery. And I say that the temptation in me is to sort of try and explain it all to you in its many details and offer theories and what have you. And I really must stay away from that and try and look more closely at the feast in the light of the gospel that's proclaimed here this coming Sunday. So I just add that bit of information to you just for you to have in advance, and please don't judge me too harshly. You know, I'm harsh enough on myself as it is. All right. Anyway, I need coffee and then I need to go and look at the readings. But for now, I will wish you well, be joyful, keep the faith, and I'll see you at Mass. Cheers. Bye-bye.